The house was too quiet. The kind of silence that didn't rest, it watched. Claire sat cross-legged on the living room floor, surrounded by open photo albums, the faint smell of dust and lavender filling the air. Evan's face stared back at her from 100 glossy pages, smiling in everyone. That same gentle tilt of his head, that same perfect symmetry of affection. But now, after 3 days without a call, without a trace, those smiles no longer looked warm. They looked rehearsed. She ran her fingers over a photo from their wedding day. Evan's hand gripped hers, firm and possessive. Had it always been that tight? She used to tell her friends she was lucky, that he was dependable, predictable, safe. But as she turned each page, her stomach began to twist. The doorbell shattered the silence. 2 detectives stood outside, one older, composed, the other young, still learning how to soften his stare. Their presence felt heavier than the quiet before. "Mrs. Avery?" "I'm Detective Rowan," the older one said, voice measured. "We'd like to ask you a few questions about your husband's disappearance." Claire forced a polite nod. "Of course. Come in." They followed her into the living room. The younger detective's eyes lingered on the scattered photos, on Evan's face repeated over and over like a brand. Was he acting differently before he went missing? Rowan asked. Claire hesitated. He was distracted, more than usual. He said it was work, but... She looked at the photo still in her lap, Evan smiling with their daughter on his shoulders. "Sometimes," she whispered, "I'd catch him looking at us like we were strangers." The younger detective scribbled something down. The sound of pen against paper felt invasive, surgical. Rowan leaned forward slightly. "Did your husband ever talk about leaving? Anyone he might have been close to outside the family?" Claire shook her head, but her throat tightened. There had been a woman's name once, murmured in his sleep, forgotten by morning. As the detectives left, the wind outside picked up, rattling the windows. One photo fluttered to the floor. It was from last Christmas, Evan standing by the tree, smiling. But behind that smile, Claire now saw something she had never noticed before. His eyes. They weren't smiling at all. And in that realization, a small cold seed of doubt took root, one that would not stop growing. The restaurant was dimly lit, the kind of place that tried too hard to feel intimate. Candlelight flickered off the wine glasses, painting little halos of gold around their untouched drinks. Claire forced a smile, trying to fill the silence with something that resembled warmth. 10 years, she said softly. "Feels impossible, doesn't it?" Evan looked up from his plate. His smile came easily, too easily. "Impossible that you still put up with me," he teased, voice smooth but with an edge sharp enough to cut. She laughed politely, but his eyes didn't match the grin. There was calculation behind them, as if he were measuring her reactions. He reached across the table, brushing her hand. "You've changed, Claire. You used to hang on my every word." "I still listen," she said. He leaned back, swirling the wine. "Listening isn't the same as caring." Before she could respond, a young waiter stumbled nearby, the tray slipping. A splash of red wine cascaded across the white tablecloth, splattering Evan's sleeve. The waiter's face went pale. "I'm so sorry, sir, Evan stood abruptly. His chair screeched against the floor. For a heartbeat, his mask slipped. The veins in his neck tightened, his jaw locked. His voice dropped into something cold and precise. "Do you have any idea what this shirt costs?" The waiter stammered apologies. Claire reached for his arm. "Evan, it's fine." He turned toward her, eyes burning, then just as quickly it exhaled, forcing the charm back onto his face. "Of course," he said smoothly. "Accidents happen." He smiled at the trembling waiter. "Really, don't worry." But as the boy hurried away, Evan's gaze lingered on the wine stains, his knuckles white. Claire stared at him, heart pounding, realizing she had never truly seen the man across from her, only the version he wanted the world to see. Later that night, when he took her hand for their anniversary photo, she noticed it again, that flawless smile, the same one now frozen in every family album, waiting to be questioned. The next morning, the neighborhood buzzed with quiet curiosity. Curtains shifted as police cars idled at the curb, their blue lights pulsing against the white picket fences. Claire stood by the window, hands trembling around a cold cup of coffee. From here, the world still looked normal, but it wasn't. Detective Rowan was outside, speaking with the couple next door. The Danners. Claire had waved to them hundreds of times, shared polite smiles and borrowed sugar. She never imagined they had heard things. "We thought it was just arguments," Mrs. Danner was saying, voice low, but sometimes it sounded worse. Rowan nodded patiently. "Worse how?" The woman hesitated, like someone crying, then silence. Then music, loud, like he was covering something up. Claire felt her throat tighten. She hadn't realized how much their walls revealed. Mr. Danner joined in. "And that night last week, I saw his car pull out after midnight. Headlights off. He didn't come back until sunrise." Rowan jotted notes. "You're sure it was Evan?" "Yes, sir. The sound of that engine. Hard to mistake." From the porch, Claire tried to keep her composure, but the edges of her perfect image were crumbling. Their perfect marriage, the one she had guarded so fiercely, now looked like a performance everyone had seen through. When Rowan returned inside, his tone was careful. "Mrs. Avery, your neighbors mentioned a fire. Smoke from your backyard a few nights before Evan disappeared. Can you tell me about that?" Claire frowned. "A fire? No. We haven't used the fire pit in months." Rowan met her gaze for a long, unreadable second, then closed his notebook. "If you remember anything else, call me." After he left, Claire stepped out to the patio. The air still carried a faint, acrid scent she hadn't noticed before. Something metallic, charred and final, and beneath the ashes near the garden stones, something small glimmered, a piece of metal, burned, twisted, and unmistakably part of Evan's watch. By the third day, the house no longer felt like home. It felt like a stage set, too neat, too quiet, too aware of her. Claire moved from room to room with the heaviness of someone walking through a memory she no longer trusted. Detective Rowan had told her to rest, but rest was impossible. The image of Evan's smile, the one frozen in every photo, kept flashing behind her eyes. She needed distraction, something physical, something that proved he was still just a man who'd gone missing, not a ghost haunting her thoughts. So she decided to clean his office. Evan's desk was immaculate, almost sterile. No clutter, no receipts, no stray paper clips. Only order. The scent of his cologne still lingered on the leather chair. She opened drawers carefully, expecting bills, old files, something ordinary. But it was the bottom drawer, behind a false panel, that caught her attention. Her nails scraped the wood until the panel loosened with a soft click. Inside was a small black USB drive. No dust. Recently used. A single word written on masking tape. Memories. Her stomach turned. She plugged it into her laptop, expecting family photos. Maybe something sentimental. Instead, there was a folder titled Home. Inside, dozens of video files appeared, each labeled with dates. Her hands shook as she opened the first. Grainy footage. Her bedroom. The camera faced the bed. She was sleeping, peaceful, unaware. In the corner of the frame, Evan's silhouette moved closer, standing perfectly still for minutes, just watching. She clicked another. The kitchen. She was talking on the phone, laughing. The camera angle shifted, zoomed in slightly, as if following her voice. Then another. Footage from the driveway, from her car, from the grocery store. Evan's voice whispered softly from behind the lens. Always watching. Always safe. Claire slammed the laptop shut, bile rising in her throat. Every inch of the house now felt infected by his presence. In the corner of the office, she noticed something else. A faint red light blinking beneath the bookshelf. A hidden camera. She unplugged it with shaking hands. For the first time, she realized Evan hadn't disappeared. He had prepared for it, and somewhere, he might still be watching. Outside, thunder rolled low over the hills, the same direction detectives had found that woman's body. Rain drummed against the window as Claire sat in the living room, the USB drive still lying on the coffee table like a live wire. She hadn't slept. Every creak of the house felt like a breath behind her. When the knock came, she almost screamed. Detective Rowan stood in the doorway, hat dripping with rain. His expression was grave. "Mrs. Avery," he said quietly, "we need to talk." He laid a stack of printed photos on the table, ones she hadn't seen before. Evan was in each of them, smiling that same careful smile. But beside him was a woman she didn't recognize. A flash of red dress, dark hair, a hand resting on his arm. "Do you know her?" Rowan asked. Claire swallowed hard. "No. I've never—" She stopped. A memory sparked. 2 years ago, at his company party, Evan had introduced her to someone briefly. Just a colleague, nothing important. She remembered the perfume, the sharp laugh, the way Evan's eyes lingered when the woman walked away. Rowan's voice broke through. "Her name is Lila Mercer. She was reported missing 6 weeks ago." The room tilted. "Missing?" He nodded. "We found her this morning. A hiking trail near Clearwater Woods. No signs of robbery or assault, just careful." Claire pressed a hand to her mouth. Careful. That word again. Evan's word. His handwriting had labeled everything he did, every folder, every drawer, as orderly. Even his crimes, apparently. Rowan studied her face. "You said you found surveillance equipment in the house. Did any of it show her?" Claire shook her head, but doubt gnawed at her. "No, but there were files I couldn't open, encrypted." Rowan stood, closing his notebook. "If Evan's behind this, Mrs. Avery, we'll find out. But you need to be careful. If he's still alive—" He didn't finish. He didn't need to. When he left, Claire stared at one photo. Evan smiling, arm around Lila, both looking at the camera like a couple. Lightning flashed, and for a heartbeat it looked as if Evan's eyes in the photo were fixed not on Lila, but on her, watching, waiting. And somewhere in the corner of that smile, Claire saw what she had refused to see all along, the monster wearing the man she married. The storm outside had calmed, but inside Claire's mind, it raged on. Every word Detective Rowan had spoken echoed like a verdict. She sat alone in the dark, watching the flicker of lightning crawl across the ceiling. And in its glow, memories returned like ghosts. Evan had been gentle in the beginning, the kind of man who spoke softly, who remembered anniversaries, and always said, "You're safe with me." But safety had slowly become control. It started small. Her anxiety medication vanished one morning. She tore through drawers, sobbing, certain she'd misplaced it. Evan held her close, murmuring, "You've been forgetting a lot lately, Claire. Maybe you already took them." He kissed her forehead as she cried, his tone tender, but his eyes were calculating. Weeks later, she found her pills behind the radiator, still sealed. Then came the lights. She'd turn them off before bed, only to find them burning in the morning. The windows she locked would be unlatched. He'd laugh when she mentioned it. "Sweetheart, you've been dreaming again." He recorded her panic once. She remembered it vividly now. The night she woke screaming, sure someone was in the hallway. He came in with his phone, comforting her, soothing her. The next day, he showed her the footage. "See? You scare yourself," he'd said, smiling as she broke down. Every crack in her confidence had been carved by his hands. Now, surrounded by his cameras, by the USB still waiting on her desk, Claire understood. She hadn't been paranoid. She had been trained to doubt herself. A new kind of fury replaced her fear. She walked to the mirror, studying her reflection. The woman staring back wasn't weak, wasn't broken. She was awake. And as thunder rolled again, she whispered to the empty room, "You taught me how to doubt everything, Evan." But not this. Outside, distant sirens wailed, a sound that would soon lead her to the basement, and to what he'd left buried there. The next morning began with the sound of running water. Not the comforting kind, but the gurgling choke of a pipe about to burst. Claire had barely slept. The air in the house felt heavy, thick with something unseen. When the plumber arrived, she led him downstairs, relieved to have another presence in the house. Someone alive, someone normal. The basement smelled of dust and damp concrete. Boxes were stacked neatly along the far wall, each labeled in Evan's handwriting. Tax records, tools, keepsakes. That last one made her pause. As the plumber worked near the water heater, his wrench slipped, striking the drywall with a hollow thud. "That's odd," he muttered. He tapped again. The sound was wrong, empty. Claire frowned. What do you mean? There's space behind here, he said, crouching. Like another wall. Her pulse quickened. Can you open it? He hesitated, then took a hammer to the corner. The plaster cracked, splintered, revealing a narrow cavity. The smell hit first, metallic, sour, unmistakable. Claire staggered back, hand to her mouth. Inside the hollow space was a tarp-wrapped bundle, dark with age. Around it, boxes filled with small objects. Necklaces, rings, strands of hair bound with ribbon. A folded note sat on top, written in Evan's steady script. To remember who they really were. Claire's scream caught in her throat. The plumber stumbled away, fumbling for his phone to call the police. She couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Detective Rowan arrived within the hour, his face grim as officers sealed off the house. You need to step outside, Mrs. Avery, he said gently. But Claire didn't hear him. Her eyes were fixed on the ring glinting in the evidence bag, one she recognized instantly. Lila Mercer's ring. The woman in the red dress. The realization struck like a physical blow. She had slept above this, laughed, cooked, raised her daughter, all while death hid beneath her feet. As they carried the remains up the stairs, a photograph fluttered loose from the tarp. A Polaroid of Claire, asleep in bed, unaware. Detective Rowan's voice came through the haze. We're running fingerprints, but if this is what it looks like... Your husband wasn't just missing. Claire's gaze hardened, tears drying on her face. He was preparing to come home. The basement was still sealed when Detective Rowan returned 2 days later. Claire sat at the kitchen table, sleepless eyes fixed on the coffee gone cold. The silence between them felt different now. Not awkward, but shared, like two people who had looked into the same abyss. Rowan set down a small evidence bag. Inside was a flash drive. We found this behind the false wall, he said. Labeled for Claire, her pulse stumbled. You think it's... He nodded. It's him. They played the file on her laptop. The screen flickered to life. Evan's face appeared, illuminated by soft yellow light. He was sitting in his office wearing that same calm expression she had once trusted. Claire, he began, voice low, steady. If you're watching this, then you've finally seen the truth. Don't hate me for it. He smiled, that same perfect smile. I had to do it. I had to preserve us. He spoke like a man explaining a work of art. Each murder was described not as a crime, but as a gesture of devotion. They threatened our peace, he said. The ones who tempted, who lied, who wanted to take you from me. I made sure they couldn't. Claire's hands trembled over the keyboard. The camera in the video tilted, revealing a box on his desk. Inside were the trophies found in the basement. Evan's voice softened. You were never supposed to see this. I did it so you'd never have to doubt again. Rowan reached over, pausing the video. He's justifying everything, he muttered. Classic narcissistic delusion. But Claire wasn't listening. Her eyes stayed on the frozen frame of Evan's face, the faint reflection behind him in the video. A cabin window. Pine trees. I know that place, she whispered. Rowan turned sharply. Where? She rose from the table, her voice barely a breath. His father's old cabin. He used to go there when he wanted to clear his head. Rowan's expression hardened. Then that's where we'll find him. The drive to the precinct was silent except for the hum of tires on wet asphalt. Detective Rowan's words echoed in Claire's head. Then that's where we'll find him. But as they neared the station, a heavier truth began to press down on her. One she had buried long before Evan ever vanished. She stared out the window, watching the rain smear the world into shapes she could barely recognize. Detective, she said quietly, there's something I haven't told you. Rowan glanced at her, cautious. Go on. It was years ago, she whispered. Before our daughter was born. I met someone through work, a client. We never crossed a line, but it was emotional. Messages, late-night talks. I ended it before Evan found out. Rowan didn't interrupt. But he did find out, she continued. I think that's when everything changed. The controlling, the paranoia, it all started after that. He said he forgave me, but I don't think he ever did. Her voice cracked. He started watching me closer, asking who I was texting, checking my car mileage, tracking my calls. I told myself it was guilt, that I deserved his suspicion. But now... She trailed off, staring at her hands. Now I realize it was the beginning of all of this. Rowan leaned back, the weight of her words settling in. So that's his motive, he said quietly. In his mind, every woman he killed, they weren't strangers. They were symbols of betrayal, punishment for what you did. Claire nodded, tears slipping down her face. He didn't kill for pleasure. He killed to rewrite the story, to make himself the victim. Outside, thunder rolled again, closer this time. Rowan's phone buzzed. He looked down, face paling. We just got a hit on his car, near Clearwater Woods. Claire's heart stopped. The same woods where Lila Mercer's body was found, and beyond those woods, she remembered, was the old cabin, the one Evan always called his place of peace. The forest pressed close around the police convoy as they climbed the dirt road toward Clearwater Woods. The air was sharp with pine and rain, the silence broken only by the crunch of tires over gravel. Claire sat in the passenger seat beside Detective Rowan, her hands clenched so tightly her nails cut into her palms. The cabin appeared through the trees, small, forgotten, its windows black with soot. Rowan motioned for the officers to move in. Claire remained behind, her breath fogging the glass as they entered. Minutes passed. Then a voice crackled through the radio. "We found him." Rowan looked at her, hesitation flickering in his eyes. "Stay here," he said, but Claire was already opening the door. The rain had stopped, leaving only mist and the faint smell of decay. Inside, the air was heavy, a stillness too perfect to be natural. Evan sat slumped in a chair before the fireplace, camera resting in his lap. His expression was calm, almost serene. For a moment he could have been asleep, but the hole in his chest told the truth. On the floor beside him lay a shattered mirror. Rowan crouched, examining the camera. "There's a photo on this," he murmured. He clicked through the viewfinder, and the image flickered onto the screen. Evan smiling, that same practiced, perfect smile. Beside him, the edge of the mirror reflected something else. A figure behind him, half hidden by shadow, arm raised. The outline of a gun. Rowan froze. Whoever took this was right behind him. Claire's gaze locked on the image. For the first time, the smile didn't feel sinister. It felt final. "He always said he wanted control," she whispered. Even over how it ended. Rowan glanced at her. "Claire, did you—" She met his eyes, calm, unreadable. "He left me no choice." Rain began to fall again, soft and steady, tapping against the roof like a slow heartbeat. Rowan turned away, signaling the forensics team. Claire stood over Evan's body, staring at that faint, peaceful grin. She thought of every lie, every manipulation, every life he'd stolen, and for the first time, she smiled back. Outside, the storm cleared, but in the still water pooled by the cabin door, two reflections shimmered, one fading, one walking away. 3 months later, the air in the photo studio smelled faintly of new paint and baby powder. Clean, ordinary, safe. Claire adjusted the collar of her son's shirt and brushed a loose strand of hair from her daughter's face. The children giggled at the photographer's funny noises, the sound light and innocent. It almost felt normal, almost. The man behind the camera gave a gentle nod. "When you're ready, Mrs. Avery." Claire gathered the children close, her arms wrapping around them like a shield. "Smile," she whispered, her voice trembling just enough for the photographer to notice. The flash went off, a sharp burst of white. For a moment, the brightness blinded her, and in that instant she saw Evan's face behind her eyelids. That perfect smile, the one that had fooled everyone, including her. The photographer adjusted his lens for another shot. Claire forced herself to breathe evenly, to look calm, to look like a mother who had survived something, not someone still haunted by it. From the corner of the studio, Detective Rowan watched silently. He dropped by just to check in, but his eyes said more. The investigation had been closed. Suicide, the final report read, but something in him had never fully believed it. He studied her as the camera flashed again. Claire's expression softened when she looked at her children, but each time the lens pointed her way, that softness hardened into something else. Not guilt, not relief, but control. The same quiet control Evan had once wielded so well. After the session, Rowan offered a small smile. "You're doing well," he said. Claire met his gaze, returning the smile just slightly. "We're trying," she replied. As she gathered her children's coats, the photographer called after her. "You'll love this one," he said cheerfully. "The way you're smiling, it's perfect." She froze for half a heartbeat, then turned, her voice gentle but steady. "That's what everyone used to say." Outside, the winter sun broke through the clouds, casting long shadows across the parking lot. Claire buckled the children into the car, paused, and looked at her reflection in the window. Her own smile, faint and precise. The camera flash from inside flickered one last time, and somewhere deep in the stillness of her heart, she wondered if monsters ever really die, or if they simply learn to smile through someone else.